As a child, I had a close friend who lived in the heart of a densely forested area. It was the kind of place where nature reigned supreme. Its thick canopy of trees taking over the landscape with an air of mystery and intrigue. We spent countless hours exploring the wilderness, unearthing secrets hidden within the labyrinth of foliage. But amidst the beauty and serenity, a single night forever etched itself into my friend's memory. An encounter that would challenge the very notion of safety and trust. It was a moonlit night, the pale glow casting eerie shadows upon my friend's room. Deep in slumber, she was abruptly awakened by an unsettling sensation, a presence that lingered just beyond the threshold of her consciousness. Groggily, she rubbed her eyes and gradually became aware of a chilling sight. Pressed against her window were the ghostly hands and face of a stranger, his eyes fixed upon her with an unnerving intensity. Terror gripped her heart, and a scream of primal fear erupted from her lips, piercing the stillness of the night. Within moments, her father burst into the room, instantly alert to the urgency in her voice, fueled by paternal instinct and an indomitable need to protect his child. He swiftly absorbed the gravity of the situation. Without hesitation, he reached for his trusted companion, a powerful 44 revolver strapped to his bedside. Clad only in his boxers, his adrenaline surged, fueling his determination to confront the intruder who had violated the sanctity of his home. Driven by a mixture of fury, concern, and a fierce loyalty to his family, my friend's father sprinted through the snow-covered terrain. Each step left a deep imprint. The frigid air bit at his exposed skin, but he paid it no mind. His gaze was fixed upon the figure fleeing into the night, the stranger retreating into the inky abyss of the forest. The pursuit was relentless, an adrenaline-fueled dance between predator and prey. The distance between them narrowed as my friend's father summoned every ounce of his strength. About 50 yards away from their house, they reached an old logging road, a desolate path that wound its way through the wilderness. It was there, amidst the silence of the snowy landscape, that my friend's father closed the gap, his footsteps pounding with a resolute purpose. As he drew closer, his breath coming in ragged gasps, he caught sight of the stranger's truck, an all too familiar sight. Recognition surged through his veins, intertwining with disbelief. It was the vehicle belonging to his best friend of 30 years, the person he had trusted implicitly, confided in during moments of triumph and despair. The revelation struck with a force that threatened to shatter the very foundation of their bond. Before he could fully comprehend the depths of betrayal, the stranger leaped into the truck, his escape propelled by the roar of the engine. The tires spun against the icy terrain, their desperate grip releasing them from the clutches of justice. In that fleeting moment, the truth became undeniable. His best friend had been the intruder, the one who had violated the sanctuary of their home, invading their lives with malicious intent. Emotions collided within my friend's father, a maelstrom of anger, heartache, and confusion. The chase had revealed a dark underbelly, unraveling a friendship once deemed unbreakable. The scars of this experience would forever leave a mark upon his heart, a reminder of the fragile nature of trust and the depths to which a person's true character can sink. In the aftermath of that harrowing night, my friend's family grappled with the wounds inflicted by betrayal, but amidst the pain, incident served as a catalyst, fortifying their bonds and instilling within them a heightened sense of vigilance. They vowed to protect one another, to create a fortress of unwavering loyalty and resilience that could withstand the darkest storms. Years have passed since that chilling night, and my friend's family has emerged stronger, their hearts tempered by adversity. The wounds may have healed, but the lessons learned remain etched in their collective consciousness. They cherish the love and trust they share, yet remain ever vigilant, recognizing that even in the realm of the familiar, danger may lurk, concealing itself behind the masks of those closest to us. I'm 32 years old now, but this crazy story takes me right back to when I was just a little kid, around 8 or 9 years old. We lived way out in the bush, in this small, tight-knit community where everybody knew everybody else's business. At the time, my mom was dating this guy who was way younger than her. Let me tell you, that relationship was a roller coaster, but that's a whole other story for another time. This guy, he loved nothing more than throwing wild parties at our house. It was the kind of place where people would come over, crack open a few beers, and just hang out, escaping the mundanity of everyday life. Now, in this eclectic mix of characters that frequented our home, there was this one guy. Let's call him Greg. Greg was a real oddball, the kind of person who seemed to exist on the fringes of society. I'm pretty sure he had some kind of schizophrenia going on. He lived even deeper in the bush than we did, and that says something. My mom had some memorable stories about him, like the time they paid him a visit at his place, and the whole damn place reeked of death. Turns out Greg had gone on a raccoon skinning spree or something, leaving the hides and even some carcasses out in the sun. It was enough to turn your stomach. Anyway, one day when my mom's boyfriend was out, Greg decided to make an unexpected appearance at our doorstep. My mom, bless her heart, never one to turn someone away, invited him in. As she bustled around, tidying up the kitchen and whipping up some homemade goodies, Greg and her struck up a conversation that lasted for what felt like hours. Little did they know, lurking beneath Greg's eccentric exterior were secrets that would soon send goosebumps creeping all over our bodies. And wouldn't you know it, just as fate would have it, that was the exact moment when her boyfriend walked through the front door. The shock and irritation on his face were palpable as he pulled my mom aside, his voice dripping with irritation that came from his concern for her safety. He sternly said to her, "Don't invite him in when I'm not home." Time ticked by, maybe a month or two, until one fateful morning. The sun had just begun its ascent, climbing higher and higher into the sky while casting a warm golden glow over our little home. Suddenly, a sharp, insistent knock tore through the peaceful morning at our front door. And there, standing on our porch, was Greg, looking all antsy and fidgety, like he couldn't sit still for a second. My mom's boyfriend answered the door, and before he could even utter a greeting, Greg blurted out his urgent calls for my mom. Clearly, he was desperate for her to be home, but my mom boyfriend, with his instincts on high alert, decided to like to Greg. He adamantly declared that she wasn't home and instructed Greg to hit the road. Reluctantly, Greg turned to leave, his footsteps growing faint as he got further and further away from our house. But then, when he was almost to the end of the driveway, Greg slowly turned around to face us again, and when he did, he was looking at us with a wild-eyed smile, and in his hand We could see the massive butcher knife Greg had been hiding from us as he pleaded for my mom to come see him at the door just moments ago. Even now, all these years later, the memory of that moment still makes me sick with the thought of what could have happened if my mom had answered the door that day. My mom occasionally brings up that story, and each time I can't help but feel this queasiness churning in the pit of my stomach. The mere thought of what that deranged individual might have planned prompts a guaranteed nightmare for me the next time I close my eyes to go to sleep. So, back in the day, we had this neighbor, Ira, who was basically a gardening genius. Seriously, his raised garden beds were the stuff of legends. Ira, his wife, and their nephew, who they took in when he hit a rough patch, lived just down the block from us. Their yard was like a little slice of paradise smack dab in the middle of our neighborhood. One regular afternoon, we were minding our own business when there's a knock on the door. Lo and behold, it's a cop asking my dad if he can borrow some gardening tools. Talk about strange, right? Why didn't the cops have their own gear? And why not just ask Ira, the gardening guru? We had no clue what was going on. But then, the bomb drops. Turns out, Ira's nephew, dealing with some serious drug issues, did something horrific. He offed Ira's wife and buried her in their once beautiful garden. The cops needed our tools to dig up the garden and get to the bottom of this gruesome crime. That night, our quiet little neighborhood was all lit up with flashing police lights outside Ira's place. Red and blue lights danced on the houses and trees, casting creepy shadows everywhere. I couldn't help but peek out the window, watching the officers do their thing with these serious expressions. It was like something out of a movie, not the cozy scene we were used to. My dad hands over the tools, knowing they're going to be used for some pretty grim stuff. When they're finally returned, they're not the same. There's a R scratched into the handles, our family initial. From then on, those tools were a constant reminder of the horror that went down right next door. But life moves on, right? We kept using those tools in our own garden. Every time I picked one up, I couldn't shake this eerie feeling, like they were witnesses to some dark stuff, you know? But despite their past, they helped our garden thrive. Flowers bloomed, fruits grew. It was like a little victory over the darkness. As the years passed, the tools started to wear out. Each time one broke, it was like saying goodbye to a piece of history, but it also felt like closing a heavy chapter in our family story. Those tools, despite their dark backstory, had become a part of our lives. Saying goodbye was tough. The whole experience taught me some hard lessons about life. It's like, even in the darkest moments, there's still a glimmer of hope. Now, when I'm out in the garden, I can't help but think about those tools and the secrets they hold. It's like they're hiding stories of what really happened over there that night. And sometimes, when I'm locking up the garden shed for the night, I get this weird feeling. It's like someone's watching me from the shadows. I can't help but wonder if Ira's wife's spirit still lingers there, her presence forever tied to the earth that once concealed her body.